Rotate the pod, please, Hal.
What do you think?
I'm not sure. What do you think?
I've got a bad feeling about him.
You do?
Yeah.
2001. A Space Odyssey wasn't just a science fiction film. It was a 4-year obsession that rewrote what cinema could do. A director who refused to show aliens. A composer who didn't find out he'd been fired until he sat down in the theater. A $750,000 rotating room built by an aircraft company. And at its premiere, 241 people walked out. 1. It started with a short story. Most people assume 2001 began as an original idea dreamed up by Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke together. It didn't. The foundation was a short story Clarke had already written in 1951 called The Sentinel. It described a mysterious object left on the moon by an alien civilization. A kind of alarm waiting to be triggered the moment humans became advanced enough to find it. Kubrick read it and saw something bigger. In 1964, he reached out to Clarke and proposed they develop the idea together, first as a novel, then as a film. The novel and the movie were written simultaneously, with Clarke taking the book and Kubrick taking the screen. 2. The budget was $10.5 million. MGM agreed to finance the film without fully understanding what they were agreeing to. Kubrick had originally estimated a more modest budget. By the time production was done, the final cost had reached $10.5 million. An enormous sum in 1968, and significantly over what had been planned. The centrifuge set alone consumed $750,000. The 205 special effects sequences, unprecedented in number for any film at that point, consumed enormous resources on top of that. MGM was nervous throughout. They had little visibility into what Kubrick was actually building on their money. When they finally saw it, their concern did not immediately go away. 3. The centrifuge cost $750,000 and weighed 30 tons. The rotating interior of the Discovery spacecraft is one of the most iconic sets in film history. It cost $750,000 to build, equivalent to roughly $6.5 million today, and weighed 30 tons. It was constructed by Vickers Armstrong Engineering Group, a British firm that normally built aircraft. The wheel was 38 feet in diameter, rotated at 3 miles per hour, and required cameras to be either bolted to the floor and spin with it, or held in position by a steel cable running through a concealed slot. For the scene where Frank Poole jogs circuits of the ship, Gary Lockwood was running on the spot. The set revolved around him. 4. Carl Sagan told Kubrick not to show the aliens. One of Kubrick's central problems was how to depict an alien civilization without making it look ridiculous. He consulted Carl Sagan, then a young astronomer, years before his television fame. Sagan's advice was direct. Any attempt to show extraterrestrial beings would inevitably make them look like actors in costumes. The gap between what the film needed and what could actually be built would destroy the credibility of everything around it. Kubrick took the advice completely. He removed the aliens from the film entirely and replaced them with an idea: the monolith, something that registered as genuinely unknowable, a shape that implied intelligence without depicting it. The decision defined the entire film. 5. Hal was originally a woman named Athena. The earliest drafts of the screenplay gave the ship's computer a female voice and a different name entirely. She was called Athena. At some point during development, Kubrick changed the character to male. The name became HAL, standing for Heuristically Programmed Algorithmic Computer.
You don't mind talking about it, do you, Dave?
No, not at all.
The first actor brought in to voice the role was Martin Balsam, a respected stage and screen performer who had recently won an Academy Award. Balsam recorded the part. Kubrick listened back and felt his voice was too emotionally American, too warm, too recognizably human in the wrong way. He was quietly let go. 6. Douglas Rain. Recorded Hal in a single day after Balsam was dismissed, Kubrick's team searched for a replacement. Several names were considered: Jason Robards, Walter Pidgeon, Richard Basehart, Jose Ferrer. None of them got the part. Canadian stage actor Douglas Rain was originally hired to record narration for the film, narration that was later cut entirely. During that session, Kubrick asked him to read Hal's lines instead. Rain recorded all of Hal's dialogue in approximately 9.5 hours. He did it with his bare feet resting on a pillow, a deliberate technique to maintain the relaxed, unhurried quality Kubrick wanted. His voice became one of the most recognizable in cinema history from that single session. 7. The composer didn't know he'd been fired. Alex North was one of Hollywood's most celebrated composers. He had scored A Streetcar Named Desire, Spartacus, and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. He and Kubrick had worked together before. When Kubrick asked him to write the score for 2001, North came to London and delivered 40 minutes of music for the first hour of the film. Kubrick said nothing. He had been using classical pieces as temporary guide tracks during editing, Strauss, Ligeti, Khachaturian, and had quietly decided he preferred them to anything North could write. North found out his score had been rejected when he sat down at the premiere and heard the Blue Danube playing instead of his own work. 8. The original score survived on monotapes. The master recordings of North's score were kept at Anvil Studios in England. They stayed there until the facility closed. When it did, the masters were erased. All that survived were mono fold-down tapes kept by North's family. For decades, almost nobody outside of production had heard what the film might have sounded like. It wasn't until 1993 that composer Jerry Goldsmith recorded North's full score with the National Philharmonic Orchestra and released it commercially. North believed until his death that his music had been the right choice and had been grossly undervalued. 9. The Dawn of Man was filmed entirely indoors. The vast prehistoric landscape of the opening sequence, the cracked African earth, the wide horizon, the blazing sky, was filmed entirely inside a studio at MGM's facility in Boreham Wood, England. Kubrick had found a perfect real location in Southwest Africa. He decided he couldn't use it. Transporting trained ape performers, camera equipment, and production crew to a remote African location was logistically impossible at the scale he needed. Instead, he pioneered a front projection technique using a screen coated in a hyper-reflective 3M material that reflected light 100 times more efficiently than standard screens. The background plates were shot separately. The apes were filmed in front of them in the studio. The joins were invisible. 10. The lead ape was a heroin addict. Dan Richter played Moonwatcher, the lead man-ape of the Dawn of Man sequence, and also choreographed the entire prehistoric prologue. He was a hardcore heroin addict throughout the entire production. He initially hid this from Kubrick. According to his own account, he was injecting a speedball combination of heroin and cocaine up to 7 times a day while working on the film. He designed and performed some of the most physically demanding and precisely choreographed sequences in the film while managing active addiction. He later wrote about the experience in his memoir, Moonwatcher's Memoir, detailing both the production and his struggle with dependency. 11. Kubrick tried to ensure against real alien contact. Arthur C. Clarke later recounted one of the stranger details of the production. Stanley Kubrick, concerned that genuine extraterrestrial contact might be announced before the film released and undermine its impact, approached Lloyd's of London to take out an insurance policy covering that specific scenario. He wanted financial protection in the event that real aliens were discovered while his film about fictional aliens was still in production. Lloyd's refused. The policy was considered uninsurable. Kubrick accepted the decision and moved on. The film came out without incident. No aliens were discovered. 241 people walked out of the premiere. The world premiere took place on April 2, 1968 at the Uptown Theater in Washington, D.C. 241 people left before it ended. Among them was actor Rock Hudson, who was heard asking loudly what the film was supposed to be about. Critics were polarized. Some called it a technical achievement without a movie underneath it. The New Yorker described it as monumentally unimaginative. Kubrick went straight back to the editing room. Within days, he cut approximately 17 minutes from the film before general release. The cut was made quietly, without announcement. Most audiences never knew there was a longer version. 13. The missing 17 minutes are in a vault somewhere. The footage Kubrick cut after the premiere has never been released. It is known to exist. Reports over the years have indicated the cut material sits in a film vault, location unspecified, controlled by the Kubrick estate. No plans for its release have ever been announced. The premiere version ran approximately 160 minutes and did not include the chapter title cards. The Dawn of Man, Jupiter, and Beyond the Infinite. That helped orient audiences in the released cut. Whether the missing footage would change the film in any meaningful way, nobody outside the estate currently knows. 14. The film made $148.5 million on a $10.5 million budget. Despite the walkouts, the confused reviews, and the general bewilderment of the mainstream press, 2001 became one of the highest-grossing films of 1968. It made $148.5 million at the worldwide box office against its $10.5 million budget. A significant part of its audience was young, counterculture viewers who responded to the film's second half as a psychedelic experience. It played for months in major cities. Kubrick won the only Academy Award of his directing career for 2001's visual effects. The film was nominated for 3 additional Oscars. Roger Ebert gave it 4 stars and called it magnificent. Some critics, who had panned it on first viewing, quietly reversed their positions. 15. George Lucas borrowed its techniques for Star Wars. The influence of 2001 on what came after it is almost impossible to overstate. George Lucas studied the film's effects work closely while developing Star Wars. The techniques Kubrick and his team developed for depicting spacecraft in motion, the scale, the patience, the stillness of space, fed directly into what industrial light and magic built in the mid-1970s. Christopher Nolan has cited 2001 as the central influence on Interstellar. Steven Spielberg kept a print of it and screened it repeatedly during production on Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The rotating set technology Kubrick developed for the centrifuge reappeared in Poltergeist, A Nightmare, on Elm Street, The Fly, and Nolan's Inception. 16. Hal's name was not a dig at IBM. One of the most persistent theories about 2001 is that Hal's name was chosen because each letter sits one position ahead of IBM in the alphabet. H before I, A before B, L before C. Both Kubrick and Clarke denied it repeatedly. Clarke stated in multiple interviews that the coincidence was noticed after the fact and was entirely accidental. The name HAL stood for Heuristically Programmed Algorithmic Computer, nothing more. IBM had actually cooperated with the production, lending technical advice and allowing their logo to appear on equipment in the film. A deliberate coded insult to their partner would have been an odd choice. The theory endured anyway, because it was too satisfying to let go. 17. The ape suits were so realistic. Nobody got the Oscar. The ape costumes and prosthetics for the Dawn of Man sequence were designed by British makeup artist Stuart Freeborn. He built masks with an internal mechanism that allowed the actors to move the lips from inside using their own facial muscles. Controlled by levers operated with their tongues. The teeth and tongues you see on screen are fake. The expressions are real. The work was extraordinary. Arthur C. Clarke later theorized that the Academy didn't nominate Freeborn for a makeup Oscar because the apes looked so convincing that voters assumed they were real animals. That same year, John Chambers won a special Oscar for his ape makeup on Planet of the Apes. Clarke remained openly irritated about that comparison for the rest of his life. Freeborn went on to create Yoda for The Empire Strikes Back. 18. Kubrick, Dulia, and Lockwood. All traveled to England by boat. The director and both lead actors shared an unlikely detail. Stanley Kubrick, Keir Dullea, and Gary Lockwood were all afraid of flying. All three of them traveled from the United States to England by sea for production. The most technically ambitious science fiction film ever made, a story about humans navigating deep space in a nuclear-powered spacecraft, was directed and starred by three men who wouldn't board a plane. As filming progressed, Dullea worked through his fear of heights enough to perform his own stunt in the emergency airlock sequence, dropping 24 feet on a wire inside a vertically mounted set. By the time the film was released, Kubrick persuaded both actors to fly from New York to Los Angeles for the LA premiere. It was a significant concession from all of them. 4 years in the making, 241 walkouts at the premiere, a composer who found out he'd been replaced by sitting in the audience, and a film that changed everything anyway. 2001 didn't ask for your understanding, it just waited. Drop the fact that hit hardest in the comments below, and subscribe. There's always another story hiding inside a film you thought you already knew.